Scary, scary Sunday. How are we doing, everybody? It's your man and host this hour, Sammy the Man McIntyre. We are back with Moving the Chains podcast. Hope we're rocking and rolling today. I'm repping Notre Dame. I just watched USC lose, so I had to kind of rub it in just a little bit just to poke the bear. Fantastic win by TCU. Crazy to think they were in the college football championship game a few years ago, even though they got murdered by Georgia, but be that as it may. USC, what are you doing? I'll get into that today. We had a couple games going on last night, some rivalry games. Panthers, Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young, 2 number 1 picks going at it in division in kind of a wet, soggy field down in Tampa. And then we had Seattle and the Niners last night, 2 quarterbacks, teams going on tears, know each other really, really well. So I want to touch on that, and then just some college football stuff I noticed. Watched some bowl games that I watched highlights of this morning. But I want to talk about last night. So, Baker Mayfield and Bryce Young played last night. And you guys know me. I'm the biggest Baker Mayfield fan. He's my doppelganger. I love him to death. But I always keep it real and keep it 100. He hasn't played well last couple games. I think he's had 11 interceptions, 9. And he's just been pressing. And he's just been doing stupid shit. And it feels like Cleveland Baker early on. And last night, he had to be at his absolute apex to play great because those weather conditions were not ideal last night. And I watched that game, and I got my cheat meal last night, got some Ziffles, absolutely fire. Check that out if you guys are in the Fort Wayne area. It's a little bit expensive, but it's worth it. So when I watched that game, Tampa Bay took advantage of Carolina last night. And it was an ugly game. Both quarterbacks kind of hit and miss. Accuracy kind of hit and miss. But Baker Mayfield came through last night, and he had to outduel himself, and he kind of exercised those demons that he had in that first matchup just a few weeks ago in Carolina when Bryce Young basically outplayed him. And Baker's stat line was not great last night. It was 16-23, 200 yards, a touchdown, a pick. The pick was kind of awful. He read the great play by the linebacker, getting depth on his drop on that interception by Rosenboom. But be that as it may, Baker still played pretty well. And the run game got going yesterday. Their defense played well. And moving forward, I know that, they can win the division, but they have to have the Saints win or the Falcons. These last weeks of the season are always crazy with scenarios. So all that's going to come down to at the end of today. Having said that, though, this Tampa Bay team will get one and done in the playoffs. Either one of these teams that go. And I saw some NFL memes last night. Anytime the refs had something positive for the Buccaneers or the Panthers, it was like Kurt Angle. I think it was old Attitude Era. I think when he was the referee. And that's kind of how it felt last night watching that game. And I saw another meme where they had the clowns come out. Kind of terrifying. Some clowns kind of scare me. I know, shouldn't, but they do. And that's kind of how the NFC South's always been. It's kind of been kind of a clown division. Like, it's always kind of more college-driven than NFL. And I will say this. Both these teams have moments where I go, yeah, they're really good, and then moments where you shake your head and go, wow. And that's kind of how I've always felt the NFC South. Not a bad division. I mean, each team's had kind of their run a little bit. Atlanta had their run with Matt Ryan. Tampa Bay had their run with Tom Brady. So on and so forth. Carolina with Cam, and you get the point. But moving forward, though, for Tampa, you got some decisions to make. And I said this bunch of times. I said this before the summer as I was picking divisions. Tampa Bay's an older team, and you got that age is going to kind of creep up on you. And they've had some injuries this year. Their offensive line's been kind of in and out the lineup, moving combinations around, so on and so forth. That's going to be kind of, alarming. If whatever team gets in, we'll see. But this defense finally showed up that I hadn't seen in a long time. They stifled the run game for Carolina's team, which, let's be honest, Bryce Young, the minute he's not getting the run game support, he's not the same guy. And I think moving forward with Tampa, you got to kind of wonder, is this last game for Mike Evans, this last game for Levante David? You got an older roster, older team, but I don't doubt Tampa Bay at all. I don't doubt their talent evaluation. I remember John Spytek said that when he got the Raider gig. He appreciated how detail-oriented and focused that scouting department was down in Tampa, and he's right. I mean, Jason Licht's one of the best GMs in football. They've always had talent. They just needed a quarterback to kind of steer the ship. And Baker, I think, has found a home in Tampa, and I'm happy for Baker. He needed a fresh start. And you do got to wonder about that moving forward. Is this Buccaneer team willing to kind of suck for a year and kind of be middle of the pack at a draft pick and just kind of reboot this thing? Because it is an older team with guys that have been experienced, won the Super Bowl obviously with Tom, but you got to kind of get some youth. And that's what I would be concerned with moving forward, but not a big concern, but just kind of something to keep an eye on. And good win for Tampa yesterday. They needed to get that win. They need to get off the schneid. They've just been kind of reeling ever since that bye week where they were 6-2 and then just kind of reeling. So that was a great gutty win by Tampa yesterday against Carolina in the rain-soaked game that was. And here's the thing. That was classic. I love games that are high-scoring. You guys know me, but I'm kind of like John Minokoff. I got a soft spot for hard-hitting. And last night was hard-hitting. There were guys flying around, smacking each other in that rain. It just was cool. And football, whenever it's in the elements, whether it's rain, snow, it's just better. And I know we're getting away from that with all these dome-ass stadiums. That's cool. Domes are fine. But football's played in the elements. And that was really cool last night to watch in the rain-soaked Florida where it's just muddy, monsoon bowl, hard to get your traction. It just was awesome. So, great win for Tampa. Great win for Tampa. Got the win. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. Highly doubt they win a playoff game, but you got your win, and you might have a shot at winning the division, which I predicted prior to the season. And on Carolina's side of things, I was a little concerned. This team, to me, is the ultimate roller coaster ride. That's two words I have with Carolina Panthers, roller coaster. Because that's what they've been all year. They've been win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss for 10 straight weeks, and that's how they are. That's how they play. I'm watching yesterday. They're missing opportunities. They had guys wide open. Bryce Young throws a pick right before halftime, and they got momentum. And then you look up, and you're like, okay, that's the Bryce Young I know. Like, they got Tommy Tremble running the crosser, and he's wide open and getting the space, and their offense was clicking, and they got the run game a little bit going. And then it was like, okay, now I see why this team showed flashes, and they beat the Packers. But then you walk up, and you're like, they lost the Jets, so it's just inconsistent. It reminded me of Atlanta a little bit. Their highs are really high, and their lows are, holy shit, that's bad. And I think moving forward, you got to wonder with Bryce Young, is he that guy? I think he's done enough to prove to me that you can win with him if the stuff's around him right. I don't know if he's ready to carry a team to the Super Bowl. There's trucks, there's trailers. He's a trailer. Nothing wrong with that. You can win games, but eventually you're going to have to be a trailer and carry. There's only 6 guys on the planet that can do that. But yesterday was kind of concerning. They missed opportunities. They had Tet wide open on that crosser. They had guys wide open, and Bryce just didn't hit them. And, I get the conditions were not ideal, but Baker, I thought, threw the ball pretty well yesterday in that rain. And the one knock that I have on Bryce that I don't have with Baker is Baker's thick. Baker can take the hits. And that's why I worry about Bryce. And, he didn't fall in that ball again. Here we go. I've seen this movie. Cam Newton did this shit. He was kind of a coward, didn't jump on the ball, didn't jump on the fumble in the Super Bowl. He's a front runner. Everything's going well. Oh, my God. And then, the ball's right there. Let me hop on it. Nah, I'm good, bro. I don't want to hurt myself. Good talk. You're an asshole. That's what it felt like again yesterday. And this is my criticism of these guys that come from these colleges, and scouts talk about it all the time too, when you don't face adversity. Bryce Young barely lost in high school. I think he lost maybe 2 games. Okay, you got to face some adversity. And last year I thought like he took that step because he got benched, played like shit the first 2 games, got benched, Andy Dalton came in, and then he got in that car accident, and he came back in, he looked great, right? And this year has been like that. It's been a lot up and down. Yesterday that throw, some of the throws Bryce Young made where he moved up in the pocket and he delivered that ball to McMillan on the deep end route. That was fantastic and that was great. But too many times or not, Bryce, the 49er game comes to my mind just not even that long ago where he's in the red zone, he throws the pick. What are you doing? Be smarter. You got to be, you're right there. So I think Carolina, I don't know if they're going to extend Bryce Young, but you got some decisions to make at the quarterback spot because you look in that division, Saints maybe found their guy. I think they have in Tyler Shuck. I think Atlanta, they're kind of in a weird spot. Is Kirk Cousins their guy? He is, but why didn't you play him earlier? Because Penix, and I love Michael Penix, I love him, but he hasn't been the same. So you just got some things that are a little weird. And then, Tampa still got Baker, but their team kind of, so Carolina kind of has got some decisions to make on the quarterback spot. Not saying that you got to cut Bryce Young and get rid of him, but just something to keep an eye on. Those were my two takeaways from that game yesterday, watching both those teams. And Dave Canales should get some blame too. What the fuck play calls are you doing? You're in a flea flicker when it's pouring down rain? Bro, what are you doing? You're a smart guy, I get it. And you've done a nice job with this Panther team. You have. You're a real football team. A little inconsistent for my take. You're a roller coaster ride, but that's okay. Sometimes I like roller coasters. Haven't been on it in a while, but I like them. But that's not what you want from a football team. And moving forward with Carolina, you got to wonder, get a better draft, get some more offensive line. But it's just hard for me to buy into Bryce Young. Like, I like the kid, and I want to buy into him. And he's impressed me more, and I've become a fan. But it's, dude, like, it's kind of iffy. So that was my take on that game. And then I want to hop over to Seattle, San Francisco last night. And I want to give a shout-out to my guy, can you smell what the Seahawks are cooking? Because last night Seattle cooked up a can of whoop-ass in Santa Clara under the lights in just a masterclass defensively. They stymied and suffocated this red-hot Niner offense. And I was blown away. I thought this would be a 28-24 kind of game, shootout-ville, like it was against the Bears. No, the Seattle defense is better than Chicago's. Because Seattle, at all three levels, I said this maybe last year with Notre Dame, all three levels of their defense are fantastic. They got guys that can hit. Imawari's been phenomenal as a rookie. I saw bits of him in South Carolina because you guys know I'm a big Lenore Sellers guy, so I was watching South Carolina closely. He always popped up on my screen. He's been phenomenal. He's like their version of Cam Chancellor, but can cover better. I'm blown away. And Mike McDonald deserves a hell of a lot of credit. They showed a stat last night. His road record through 2 years, best in NFL history. And what's coincidentally funny is all those coaches were from the same division, right? It was George Seif for the Niners, all you old heads that know. It was Mike McDonald, 14-2 for Seattle. Then it was Sean McVay. And then it was Mike Martz, early pre-Rams days, greatest show on turf. So that's in really good company. They've been phenomenal on the road this year, which is shocking because Seattle's one of the best home field advantages in my lifetime that I've seen. Right up there with Lambeau and Arrowhead and all that. But way to go. And for them to be 14-3 with a lot of guys out, I mean, mainly their offensive line. There were times last night where it looked over siege, and I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. But then I had to kind of think, and I'll get to San Francisco in a minute, this is not your Grand Plus Niners from 3 years ago, where they got defensive line rotating in and out. Seattle's got that. They've got 8 linemen deep. They've got rotating, getting guys out. It's like the NASCAR package. You know, pew, 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 in. Pew, 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 out. And they always keep them fresh, and they do a phenomenal job. And about time somebody gives Sam Darnold his praise. Thank you. Yes, he exercised his demons. Yeah, he did. All you critics, oh, he's not going to do it. I thought the same thing last night. And the more I kept watching, I go, Sammy's got this. Yeah, Sammy's got this in the bag, and he does. And he delivered last night. Didn't need to do everything. Didn't have to be Superman. Just needed to do enough. And he did enough last night where I go, this team, they get the number 1 seed now. They get a bye week. And what's crazy is every time they've had a bye week, they go to the Super Bowl. Maybe a trend. Your boy maybe saw that. I don't know, yesterday. Maybe it could be. But this team is one of the best in the NFC. And any team that has to go to Seattle, that's going to be a problem. Now, they could lose that. They could lose it. I've seen number 1 seeds lose and blow it. Will they? Time will tell. We got to find out. But as of this morning, right now, recording this at 11:30 in the morning before all the 1 o'clock games start. Yeah, I think Seattle's for real. I know their offense turns it over. Sammy turns the ball over sometimes. Okay, that's fine. How many touchdowns? 25-14? All right, not great, not ideal, but I'll take it. I like guys that push the envelope down the field throwing. Sammy does that. Now, I wish they weren't so JSN reliant, but it is what it is at the moment. They've got some guys coming in and doing well. So I think you got some decisions. You know, I was blown away by Seattle last night. And the way they ran the football, that was crazy to me. They just moved the Niners off the ball. I hadn't seen this dominant offensive line in Seattle, I would say, since Sean Alexander days when he was humming. When they opened holes and just lanes for Sean Alexander, just this Moses in the Red Sea was wide open. It reminded me of Wisconsin when they had Ron Dane and Monty Ball and Melvin, just holes that were as wide as this tree, wide as this room. So credit to Seattle last night, doing this without their 2 tackles, kind of mixing and matching, getting the right guys in there. Phenomenal job last night for Seattle. Great win. Great way to exercise those demons after losing to the Niners in Seattle week 1. It was incredible. That's the kind of game I like to watch. I'm old school for that. Hard-hitting, physical, don't like each other, play through the whistle. Oh, that was like awesome TV for me. Ugly football, but I'll take that sometimes. Oh, and it was watching paint dry. I'll give you that, it was. But that was impressive last night by Seattle. And on the flip side to the Niners, that was alarming. I mean, that was a couple of takeaways I had from that game, from San Francisco's viewpoint. I know Kyle Shanahan loves his receivers. He loves the 7-on-7. I got all that. And I understand. He just doesn't, for some reason, just doesn't believe in linemen. Okay? Believes you can just mix and match guys and it could work. And maybe that's true to a degree. But just having watched the John Elway doc and his dad Mike, who both drive me a little crazy. Mike was an asshole and Kyle's a little nutty, little angry, weathered SOB. But he's proven a lot, and I think he's like the Andy Reid of this generation, just win a Super Bowl, then we get off his back, right? And I'm watching last night, and when his dad was humming in Denver with that zone read, and Kyle is still one of the best offensive minds in football. The way he does play design, the way he's exceptional. And I'm watching last night, and when Brock Purdy's one tough motherfucker, man, for a guy that's only 6'1", 220, Mr. Irrelevant, he is a tough son of a gun. He got his thumb broken last night, bloody. They had the graphic of it was awful. And he was just under siege last night. And that kind of showed me last night, Brock Purdy's done a lot of good this year. The one thing that's different for him is he can sling that pill, and he's kind of reckless at times. He likes throwing the ball down the field. For a guy that is a little short, likes throwing the ball deep. And that's cool for this day and age. But it was really alarming to me was when Mike Shanahan was humming, his dad had really good offensive linemen. He valued them. And Kyle just doesn't. I don't know why. Maybe it doesn't want to be like his dad, wants to be in his own. I get it. I understand that. But they missed Trent Williams really last night. And you better hope he's ready. And again, the Niners are like Tampa. Older team. Guys are hurt more. That are older. A lot of tread on those tires. George Kittle, McCaffrey, Trent Williams. So Niners only going uphill from here. They got a lot of work to do. And they better get shit fixed in a hurry. So that was my takeaway from that game last night. That was an absolute beatdown. And what got me was this pass rush is not the same without Nick Bosa. I'm sorry, it's not. And Fred Warner not being there really hurt him. I thought D. Winter's been playing really well. At the pick six, obviously, a couple weeks ago against the Colts that kind of iced that game. And the Colts trying to make a comeback a little bit. So I just think the Niners moving forward, you got some decisions to make, especially at just the offensive line and just to kind of get that shored up. But they're still a really good football team. Kyle's an excellent coach. John Lynch has done a really good job at drafting. Had some misses, but who hasn't in the draft historically with GMs? So, way to go, Seattle, for getting that number 1 seed. And just all road leads to the Seattle in the NFC. Unless Seattle gets a little rusty, they have the bye week. And they're kind of not buttoned up when they play their home game. So, but shall see what happens with all this seeding and stuff moving forward. And then I want to touch on, we're winding down here. I want to touch on Bills and Eagles. I watched parts of that game, and I kind of was trying to think of something because that was one of the games I wanted to hit on because I told you guys I would hit on it, and I didn't, and now I'm going to. The Buffalo Bills are wasting Josh Allen. I am beyond disgusted with them. They don't have a receiver. They had Jacoby Myers to trade line, didn't do it. Then Brandon Beane gets all defensive at the media, whatever. And then this roster I got to be honest with this roster of Buffalo. There ain't 10 guys on Buffalo that can start Philly. If you did a simultaneously 12 and 12, who's got more talent? Philly better roster, period. Buffalo doesn't. They got good players. I like James Cook. I like Deion Dawkins. A little overrated for me. Gets beat sometimes too much. And Josh Allen's best player on the planet. But, having said that, I don't blame him for going for the 2-point. Everybody's crushing him, and I get it. Josh got to make that in his sleep. But I would take that over Jalen Hurts, who, let's be honest, I'm not sold on, and I'll get to Philly in a minute. But the Buffalo, this is your time. Right now. You've got to get through the AFC. Your obstacles and your hurdles, they ain't there. Mahomes ain't there. Lamar. Whatever happens on the outcome tonight, maybe it won't be there. Maybe he will. I don't know. And then Burrow ain't there. So you've got to win the AFC and get to the Super Bowl. If you don't, everybody's gone in Buffalo. I would do it before your head could even spin. It's time to let go of McDermott. It's time to let go of Brandon Beane. You have not done a good enough job building this roster. It's too Josh Allen reliant. Sean McDermott is too annoying for my take with all the Al-Qaeda and all that bullshit comments. And he just hasn't done enough. You have Josh fucking Allen in his prime. You had this division wrapped up, and you couldn't get to the Super Bowl. I get it. Yes, you had to run through Mahomes. So did Manning. But eventually Manning broke the fucking door open and got there. You haven't got there yet. And that's embarrassing. When you got a guy this talented, this good, you need to put pieces around this goddamn player, and you can't do that to save your goddamn life. But, Sammy, they beat Miami. Everybody beats Miami. Even my Dolphin fans know. 2 ain't it. Okay. So, you got to do better, Buffalo. I know, you've never won a Super Bowl. You've been close. I got it. You're like the Minnesota Vikings of the AFC. They've gotten there, and they just haven't closed it. So, I just think with Buffalo, you got to do more. Why aren't you being aggressive? Chips to the middle over the top. I get it. You swung and missed with Von Miller. It didn't work out. Okay. But some of the Brandon Beane some guys are just too likable to shit on. And I look at Buffalo, and they just make me sad. You have this great talent, and you can't get it done. It's like the John Elway Broncos. It's what it feels like. A superstar quarterback, and everybody else around him's average. It's what it is. So, Buffalo is probably going to win today. They're going to play the Jets, whatever, and they're going to get in. And they better go to the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. Because if not, it's a failure year. Because you're wasting Josh Allen's prime. And change has got to be made in Buffalo. 10-8 years, Sean McDermott. It's time to go. And on the flip side, to the Philadelphia Eagles, listen, I don't mind Nick Sirianni. I think he's a little bit of a tool for me. And people go, why don't you give him credit? I give Howie Roseman credit. He's the best GM in football. Okay? That's enough said. I think Nick Sirianni's fine, but if the open market was available today, nobody would pick Nick Sirianni. No, nobody. You would have probably nobody. That's the answer. Nobody would hire him because Howie Roseman's been the kingmaker for their success, not him. And, they're kind of weird with his play calling. He's an offensive guy. Can you call the plays? No. Well, he's an offensive guy. I don't care. We're not doing it. Because I've seen him call plays, and it's been a disaster. And the Philadelphia Eagles just make me frustrating because, listen, I like Jalen Hurts. I'm not trying to shit on him. But if you just take away the word winner from Jalen Hurts, what is he? Like, seriously, think about it. Like, you guys driving around today, listen to me. Like, is Jalen Hurts a great quarterback? I don't think he is. He's a running back playing quarterback. That's what he is. And I think Jalen Hurts has done enough. He's obviously mature, and he's buttoned up, and he's like Dak Prescott. All that stuff I like. Coach's son, I'm all for that. But, it's kind of weird. AJ and all that. I just don't understand why this Eagle offense can't be better. You have all this talent around you, and you can't get it done? Come on. There's something missing in that gene pool. Come on. So, moving forward, I think with Philly, they could get healthy at the right time. We don't know. But I don't feel good if I'm an Eagle fan. It's time to move on. I think it's time to get a new quarterback. I think it's time to do something. Because if you put a new quarterback in there without Jalen Hurts' bullshit, and they're kind of a dramatic, dysfunctional mess at times. It's really talented. There's a couple things that ruin dynasties. One, drama. And the other thing is bullshit. And the Eagles have both. So, better get your shit together, Philly, because it's not looking great. And a couple college things I wanted to talk about. It's great having you guys on, by the way. So, I watched the Iowa-Vanderbilt game. I watched a little bit of it Thursday. Yeah, Thursday I watched a little bit of that. And I kind of was flipping around. And I watched the highlights this morning, went back and watched them. way to go, Kurt Ferentz. I know, I made fun of Iowa. Idiots out wandering around. It's an acronym. It's a joke. I'm sorry, you Iowa people that live there. But it's a joke. But he's a great coach. Kurt Ferentz is very, very good. And what he's done at Iowa, put people in the NFL, their development, they well run. They just, you know what you're going to get with Iowa. It's meat and potatoes. It's awesome, and it's great. And he got 11 bowl wins, I believe, in most of Big Ten history, and that's awesome. I'm all for Iowa. And that quarterback's great, and it was cool to see Vanderbilt go down, who I'm rooting because my cousin Heather went there, SEC, and I got a couple cousins that went to SEC schools. Like, I'm rooting for the SEC. And Vanderbilt's been a great story. I love him. But having said that, I can't stand Diego Pavia. I know he's talented. I know he's a great kid. And I like Clark Lee, but that kid's a punk. He's going to become Johnny Manziel 2.0. And I do not love the fact that he took advice from Johnny Manziel. I love Johnny Manziel as much as the next person. He's one of my favorite college players of all time. But to get advice from that guy, it's a little risky. But he's got talent. I'm not disputing that. And he'll probably be a backup in the NFL, and he'll do some good. But this is more about Iowa. And they just churn out players in the NFL, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. They're fantastic. And I can't say enough about the development of their tight ends. I mean, that 81 guy is going to be I think he goes top first 2 rounds next year if he comes out. He's that good. I like the Kronowski kid, a quarterback. Iowa's good, man. And they will always be in a bowl game with Kurt Ferentz. They'll always be well run. They'll always be well coached. Never beaten themselves. Even Urban Meyer said it on his birthday, I believe, a couple weeks ago. So the utmost respect for him. Wisconsin and Iowa always have good rivalries. It's been kind of down lately because Wisconsin's just got issues out the you-know-what. So I was impressed with Iowa and Vanderbilt, and that was a great win for that program. Another game I wanted to touch on was Tennessee played Illinois in the Music City Bowl, I believe, in Nashville. That was a cool spectacle. And I'm happy for Brett Bielema because I'm a Badgers fan, and he coached Wisconsin. He got that program up and running. Barry Alvarez, obviously, from 90 to 2005 coached and got that program on the right track, got him in a really respectable program. This is what we're about. And they were churning out 10, 11 wins a year, and they were kicking ass. And they got the bowl games. Now, lately it hasn't been that way, but be that as it may. Brett Bielema comes in, takes over for 6 straight years, been to Rose Bowls, didn't win them, but got there, had Russell Wilson that 1 year, was fantastic. And he's a really good coach. And he gets the Midwest. There's a guy that feels Midwest, it's him. Meat, potatoes, big guys, line play, physicality, toughness. He's all Big Ten, and I'm for it. And I think Illinois has done a great job the last 2 years having 10-plus wins, which hasn't happened in their history a lot. I mean, the only time I remember Illinois being good was maybe 07, 08 when they had Juice Williams and Rashard Mendenhall and Aurelius Ben. If you guys remember, that was the only time I remember Illinois being good. They've been decent, but it's kind of been hit and miss. And Brett Bielema's done a phenomenal job. So, way to go, Illinois. Way to go for my cousins Tim and Claire Naraki. I want to give a shout out to them because they both went to those schools respectively. And I'm always rooting for Big Ten schools. So, there you go. And also on Tennessee's side of things, I love watching this offense. I love watching Jice Heupel. I got cousins that went to Tennessee. My manager, Jen Behor, I want to give a shout out to her. She's the biggest Tennessee Volunteers fan I know. I love watching Tennessee football. I've said it many times this year. Watching Josh Heupel's offense with the tempo and the quickness of it is just fun to watch. And the way that he can get quarterbacks to get them kind of friendly offense is just cool. The tempo, the pacing, the speed, it's awesome. And the spacing is fantastic. And they had a good year this year. Now, didn't beat Alabama like they wanted to, and they couldn't beat Georgia. It's going to happen. So I'm not losing too much sleep over that, not beating Georgia. Georgia can't beat Alabama. There's just certain teams you can't get through. It just happens. So they're going to come back with a vengeance next year. We got to see a quarterback and a lot of freshmen coming in. They're going to be really good. And in that conversation, be one of the best teams in the SEC. And Illinois is going to be good again. They're going to find a quarterback. Hopefully, he's as good as Luke Altmaier, who, I got to be honest, I would take him 3rd, 4th round. He's a good quarterback. Good arm, moves well, really athletic. I don't know. Every time I look up and watch him, I'm like, I think he's pretty good. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. That's why I'm not a scout and coaching. So, I don't know. And in Ole Miss, and Arch I watched too. And it's crazy because beginning of the year, Arch was kind of all this hype and everything, and then goes to Ohio State and gets shut out, and it's ugly. But I always like guys with perseverance. and that can they go through the mud a little bit, have some adversity, have some tough skin, which we don't have a lot in the side anymore because everybody's a bunch of pussies and run like a little bitch. But be that as it may, whole other discussion. But watching Arch the other day, my dad texted me, goes, "You see Arch? You got the touchdown." I said, "No, I saw it, but I didn't watch it." So I went back and watched highlights this morning, and Arch was incredible. I thought Arch played about as good a game as you could play, ran the ball well. His whip and the way that he throws is fantastic. And I think Texas moving forward is going to be really good. They're always going to be good with Steve Sarkisian. They got talent out the ass. A little underachieving for my take. Got to do better. But really impressed with Steve Sarkisian. The job that he's done at Texas just hasn't come through yet. But I think they will. And on the flip side to Michigan, it was a rough year. You know, you had the Sherrone Moore bullshit. You had Bryce Underwood's inconsistent play, which he's a freak talent. He's an athlete playing quarterback. If you get that kid and kind of get him, like, I wouldn't say wound up, but just kind of in that, like, confines a little bit, let him do the playmaking, let him do all the acrobatic stuff that he can do, watch out, because that kid's going to be special. If you get him all finely tuned and the horsepower, we already know he has the horsepower, just getting all the other stuff, just the short shit, the mechanics, and that, he's going to be fantastic, I believe, in my mind. And that Kyle Whittingham hire was absolutely slam dunk A+. Little older than my take, but hey, he brings physicality, toughness, bully on the block. He was like this at Utah, developed players at Utah, put him in the NFL. He's on brand for Michigan. I can't wait for it. I can't wait for this. So there you go. We had a long, lengthy pod today. A lot to talk about. We had the 2 NFL games. I had some college football takes I wanted to do. But hope you guys are doing well. It's spooky, scary Sunday. Hope you guys are doing well. Enjoy the Sunday. We got one more week of regular season, and then we get playoff time, baby. And we still got college going on. We got 4 teams left in the tournament. I can't wait. Hope you guys have a great, fantastic, scary, spooky Sunday. Adios. Godspeed.